Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. How you doing today? Michael Zuber, One Rental. Hey there, folks. How you doing today? Michael Zuber, One Rental at a Time. We are with my good friend, Matt, the mortgage guy. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Mike.
Awesome. So, hey, what I want to do here is we're sitting at the end of the first half of the year. Yes, it is the end of June. I want to talk about the mortgage market, what your fuzzy crystal ball kind of looks at in the second half. Loan products, tightening or loosening, interest rates. What do you see going on as we have investors and buyers looking to get into the market in the second half? What's going on?
I mean, I continue to see tightening, and it's interesting because some lenders probably won't admit it, don't want to admit it because they want to tell everybody, we can approve everybody, come on down, give me a call, I want more business. But there was certainly a tightening of DU's automated system, and it probably happened 5 or 6 weeks ago. I got confirmation of that from the, top level executives at different mortgage companies. So it happened. I felt it. I saw things that were approving, not approving, some 44% debt to income ratio stuff that I would have gotten approval on Q1 of 2021, not approving, and really over these last 4 or 5 weeks. And so the folks I talked to, the executive I talked to, said that Fannie basically said, like, you're going to see a 1 to 2% difference. 1 to 2% of the stuff that's getting approved before is not going to get approved now. And so it's not huge, but as you go to those higher debt to income ratio loans, and as you plug them in the system's just going to want more compensating factors. They're going to want reserves. They're going to want a higher credit score. They're going to want other stuff. And so if you have no compensating factors and the credit score might be 685, the debt to income ratio is 44, there's no reserves, DU is just not going to approve it. And for anybody who's wondering, DU is Desktop Underwriter, Fannie's automated system. All lenders who are doing conventional loans have to plug into either Fannie or Freddie, either DU or LPA, Loan Product Advisor, and get an approve eligible. And without doubt, there's no arguing it. There's nobody who can say, oh no, that's not happening. It's happening. It's getting, although it's like not a dramatic shift, it's getting a little bit tighter. And you couple that on all loans with what we've already seen on the investment side, where lenders are, inching prices up a little bit, doing whatever tightening they're doing. Some might add overlays, some might not, but they've got to sell less investor loans. And we all got that news back in March, where only 7% of the loans that can be sold to Fannie and Freddie can be investor or second homes. Lenders had to make an adjustment. They had to change price. They had to change, how strict they were on those loans. Some did both. Some did one or another. The lenders that I'm still sending investment loans to only made really small adjustments and still offer great terms on investment loans. But it's certainly there. And it's a funny dynamic, Mike, because you've got policymakers and you've got politicians that are like, we want to lend to everybody. We want everyone to be able to buy a house. And then we've got the powers that be in the mortgage market saying, we've got to make it a little bit hard. We've got to lessen our risk, right? Mm-hmm. And you can't have the best of both worlds. And truth be told, if we loosened mortgage guidelines and lending restrictions, it would probably hurt those that you'd want to help. If you're a politician, you're like, I want somebody who's got a 600 credit score to be able to buy a house. They deserve to buy a house. Well, if you let everybody qualify for a mortgage and everybody can go out and buy a house, they're going to pay 20% more for it because you're going to flood the market with more demand. And, we've seen a ton of different iterations of why it's not good to make it easy, because then those folks you're trying to serve, now all of a sudden they have to pay $450 for a entry-level home in a bad neighborhood in Sacramento. That's just not good. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward. I think that the second half of 2021 will continue to see fairly restrictive. And I say fairly restrictive. It's not like a ton has changed, but lenders are just making good loans. That's just how things have been done, especially since the crash, right? Since 2008, when anybody could get a loan, 6, 7, 8, and things, we saw how that ended. Learned your lesson, tightened lending guidelines. And so I think we continue to see that fairly restrictive lending. And what's funny is I keep saying, and I'm not the only one, all the other analysts are saying that rates are going to go up by the end of 2021. And then we see wacky things in the market. We see the 10-year at 145. We see mortgage rates just like continue to stay low. But if you're looking for a specific time and place, everybody I'm listening to that's smart and a lot smarter than me, that's how I try to stay with my ear to the ground in mortgage. Just listen to the smart folks. The Fed meets in July, and then I think in August they meet in Jackson Hole, and that Jackson Hole meeting is like what everybody's looking at to say, okay, they're eventually going to have to take their foot off the gas, and they're going to have to start tapering and stop buying mortgage-backed securities. It was funny, something I was listening to today on that topic reminded me when I very first got into mortgage, and they started to taper. I think it was late 2013, and we saw what they call the taper tantrum, and the market just reacted. We're going to have that eventually. And I think that like all the powers that be are just like, we don't want to have the market react in a negative way. We don't want to have to go through that, taper tantrum. It's just like, we're continuing to give all the kids candy, and we don't want to see them whine and scream when you pull the candy away. But eventually we're going to have to pull the candy away, and rates are going to tick up. The market's going to react. It probably won't be pretty, but it's going to have to happen. It's going to have to happen eventually. And I think a lot of people are pointing towards August and that Jackson Hole meeting.
Yeah, that's what my experience tells me. And again, when I look at the second half of the year, I see tighter lending standards, especially for one rental at a time fans like investors, right? I think it doesn't get impossible. Like lenders turned off in 2010, right? It was just, nope, we're not doing investor loans. You have more than 4, we can't give you any loans, all of that stuff. It doesn't go there, but they're going to be really well underwritten loans. And I do think rates tick up. I too see Jackson Hole as the meeting where they come out and say, okay, we're talking about tapering. We'll go from 120 billion to 110 to 100 or whatever that scale is. And, do they get to the end of that by the end of the year? Is it February, March? Who knows? But, just that activity, I think will have, as you're saying, a taper tantrum, which means interest rates will jump much faster, right? The mortgage rate, right? The 10-year will react, and then mortgage rates will react. And I think we've seen the low of the year, but who knows the next 30 days, right? It is very odd that the 10 years where it at when we have the PCE, the Fed's favorite metric, above 3% 2 months in a row. I think it was 3.9 this month, 3.6 last month. Just very odd behavior. And then the other thing, I don't know if you saw, but they just published weekly mortgage apps today for purchases. And I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I think they were down 17% year on year and 5% week on week. This goes to the fact that I think the slowdown is happening. And I think it's buyer fatigue. I think it's buyers going on vacation. It's those kinds of things. So what are you seeing? Are you seeing a little bit of a slowdown with people just going, hey, I'm frustrated, I'm done, I'm going to take a break?
Yeah, I've seen a ton of that. I've got a ton of feedback on my YouTube channel about, people are going on vacation, they're taking a break. There's a little bit of that buyer fatigue. What I think is important though to look at is when you look at year over year numbers, I think about, mortgage applications a year ago, and things were shut down in March. And then April, when some stuff started to open back up, there was just a flood. Rates went down and people went bananas.
Yeah, they did.
So if you have bananas in 1 year, and then you look at year over year numbers, it might be more dramatic than some people are.
For sure.
Or people might be making it bigger than it really is. This huge 17% decline. Another thing to think about is that if we're trying to gauge supply and demand, and you look at mortgage apps being down on purchases, but then you see an 8% increase in cash buyers,
True.
like how much is demand really waning? And I'm with you that I feel and see a little bit of demand wane, and we can even see how that's translated to more inventory being on the market. But I just as much as the media might spin it or the numbers might say this dramatic 17% decline in mortgage apps, I'm not seeing it being that dramatic. I think that there's still, while it's lesser than April, May, there's still quite a bit of demand out there. And I've been talking about it on my channel, little bit of wane in demand, and I'm like rooting for that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm trying to speak into existence, is like, hey, it's going to get a little bit easier for buyers, because I've just got buyers that have beat their head against the wall for months, and it's just hard. And so based on my personal business, where I always, if I'm not paying attention to anything else, I'm paying attention to that. More people are getting into contract. It feels like I'm seeing more and more of like, oh, wow, that one's on the market for 21 days. And it seems like it's, not too overpriced. And that one's on the market for 24 days. Some of the stuff that you wouldn't have seen in April and May, you're seeing now. And even if it still hasn't translated to somebody having an easy time buying, it's hard to quantify, but maybe 15 offers turned into 7, and maybe something that got accepted in June, April, or May, it would have had more buyers, more bidders, would have had to have gone higher. So I see it trending that way, and I think it's going to be a combination of things: the buyer fatigue, people going on vacation, the time of year where people are just starting to think about, all right, school starting in 7 or 8 weeks. Where we are now is where we're going to stay through the next school year. We're not going to do any moving and shaking. And we should, I would think, as we open up, return to some sort of normalcy with seasonality in real estate, where the spring is hot and everyone's listing and there's a bunch of action. And then the summer, things slow down a little bit. And when school starts, there's something about that where there's not as many people migrating and moving, especially if we have actually in-person school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. Really, with a year and a half or whatever it's been of kind of kids at home, homeschooled, it really has changed the housing market, both the demand and supply side. It's kind of interesting. I too hope we have kids back in school in August or September, whenever school starts again. But yeah, I really do think the second half of the year is going to be where buy and hold investors get some power back. As you know, I've told you, I wrote 250 offers last year and got nothing. I'm already seeing that that's changing. I'm writing offers on what I consider good or great deals, and I'm actually getting counters. And that's just very recent. Still haven't gotten anything off the MLS, but you can see it's changing.
Nice.
Days on market. My buy box has more stuff in it. And I'm hearing that from my students. So I see the hardest thing to find in real estate for the last year was a motivated seller. I think what's going to happen in the second half of the year is, if you're doing the work daily, you're going to start to find them, right? A student of mine found a condo and they got it for like 15% under list price because it sat for 21 days of all things. Oh my God, it sat for 21 days. But that was abnormal for the market he's in. I think it was in Ohio. But yeah, I'm very excited by what's coming. I think if you're a buy and hold investor doing the work, you're going to see your buy box change. You're going to see days on market expand. You're going to see price drops, and you're going to find those motivated sellers, because some people have to sell. Divorce, job change, health events, whatever it is, and they'll be more flexible on price. The people that don't need to move, they'll put it on at an unrealistic price. They won't get any offers, and they'll just pull it off. So I think realtors are going to have a very hard job for the next 45 days, because I think the consumer is going to want to peg the price really high because their neighbor sold in 7 days with 50 offers. And I think July is a very different market than we had in April. So it's going to be an interesting time, and I'm excited for buy and hold investors.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I'm dealing with mostly buyers, but some of my buyers are also sellers because they're selling and they're buying forward. And I've heard just in this last couple week period, I haven't got any offers yet, Matt. And like that for a seller is like, what is happening? You could list your house at any price, and you would have people walking through, you would have offers. And now, like you said, there's going to be some disconnect between the reality of the market we're in and what you just saw in the past 3 or 6 months. And a seller is going to say, yeah, I want to list this place at $599 and this thing should sell no problem. If the market has started to shift a little bit, it gets ugly to be behind that, where, you know, a really seasoned real estate professional says, listen, you should really list it at 569 because things are starting to change. No, 599. Okay. You list it at 599, no action for 2 weeks. Then you lower it to 579, no action. And then people look at it and like, oh, it's been on the market for 28 days. Something must be wrong. And you start to, you know, try to catch a falling knife. Then all of a sudden you sold it for 540 because you're trying to move. That's why it's super important to have very high quality realtor that you like and trust and just listen to their advice. Because if they're active and they're working a lot, they're going to know, hey, listen, that 599 and sell in 3 days, that train has left the building. That's gone. That was April of 2021, and we're not there anymore if you're, you know, listing in September. So will be interesting to see. And for me, as somebody who works with a ton of buyers, I'm excited, just like you're excited for all the investors who are likely going to have a lot easier time Q3 and Q4 of 21.
Oh, let's speak that into existence. I can't wait for that. So do me a favor, Matt, how can people be a part of your world, follow you if they want to get something going on?
I'd love for him to come check me out, Matt the Mortgage Guy on YouTube. If you're in California, shoot me an email, matt@mattthemortgageguy.com. Me and my team are happy to help. If you're outside of California, I want to connect you with somebody who I like and trust, who's going to help you out and give you good advice. So greatmortgagebroker.com. I set that up especially for people who aren't in California who say, Matt, I want to talk to a trusted broker, but I don't know one in Indiana, or I don't know one in Texas. I don't know one in Florida. Greatmortgagebroker.com. Quick 6 questions. You're going to be connected with somebody who is going to do right by you. If they don't, I know you're going to contact me and then I'll help you out.
There you go. Thank you very much, buddy. Look forward to episode number 2. We're going to do some comparisons, buy and hold, yield calculations, mortgage rates, all these different things. Trust me, you're going to like this because it's going to tell you what kind of impact you have on cash flow. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks.